Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the first episode of our YouTube Book of Hours playthrough. The other ones are archives of Twitch streams. So we're going to jump right into the game. This is probably going to be a lot of character creation at the start, but I do want to make sure that I'm describing everything for people who haven't played the game before. So one thing I did just want to get out of the way as well, because we are getting... This is prior to the release of the game, and I was given a key for promotional purposes. So for Cultist Simulator, I bought the game. I was a Kickstarter backer. And obviously I have, a good relationship with Weather Factory. I like the game that they play. They've invited me to broadcast on their Steam channel. But this is actually a weird case here where, even though I do a lot of Cultist Simulator content and Secret Histories content, it is actually important. It's a requirement that you disclose when you have been given something of value for promotional purposes. And this is for promotional purposes, as you can see here with this special guest preview. So I need to figure out a good way of doing this at the start, but I did just want to say that I am playing a copy of the game that is given for promotional purposes. And I'll say that for a few episodes, which I know will get a little bit annoying for people watching the playlist. But please just keep in mind that those guidelines exist to protect people from, less scrupulous actors in terms of, selling you products, let's say. So let's jump into the game. I already gave a big long introduction, so we are going to hit new game now. I'm not really overwriting the game because, there's the save files. But here we are. Book of Hours. Brankrug, March the 7th, 1936. There has been no librarian at Hush House since the fire, 7 years now. Suitable candidates are very difficult to find, but perhaps we have found one in you. Take care on your journey. The seas around Brankrug are treacherous. The cold comes first. Thunder growling, waves pounding, and finally me, sprawled on the sodden sand of the beach. There's something in my hand. So first we've got health. We're half drowned. Shivers rack my soaked body. Your health is failing. Find somewhere to warm up. Now, if you have never played a Secret Histories game, and it's fair to say that I think this will be true for a lot of people for Book of Hours. This is a tremendously ambitious game. It's, I think, the largest that Weather Factory have ever done. And, I mean, obviously they have 2 games, but I mean, the developers have done it. It's quite likely this is the biggest game that anyone associated with this project has ever worked on. And as a result, you would assume that for a project like that, there's an expectation, you want to see games do well, and so this means that there's a larger audience. Or at least it needs a larger audience in order to achieve the success that people are looking for. So now's not a bad time to take a minute here and just say what the world is like and how it's represented inside of this game. In Cultist Simulator, it takes place all on one desk, but in the case of Book of Hours, we're at a physical location. We're on a beach here after a shipwreck. But the game is still primarily text-driven. It's a beautiful-looking game, and it's a game that's very good at engaging all of the senses. But a very large part of the game is going to involve reading and specifically rereading, but also taking specific note about certain aspects of the different cards. So, for instance, we've got the health. We're half drowned, shivers rack my soaked body, your health is failing, find somewhere to warm up. So this is describing the specific element, maybe a part of myself or an associate that I have, or maybe an item that's in my possession. But it does have its own aspect. So in this case, we've got heart. The heart relentless beats to protect the skin of the world we understand. The heart is the principle that continues and preserves. Winter. Winter is the principle of silence, of endings, and of those things that are not quite dead. It's an element of the soul. The human soul is composed of 9 elements, and this is one. Most other things have simpler souls. Each soul card can be used once a day for the kinds of things that you do with your soul. That usually means talking to people or crafting. It has a malady. Something has snared or sickened my soul. Soul cards can be malady-tainted when you're exposed to dangerous influences, sometimes when you fail in a task. Maladies cannot be exhausted, but your soul is altered and weakened, and there can be serious consequences if they go untreated. And finally, it's soaked. In peril of dissolution, intervene quickly, but not hastily. So, one of the things that we will find in this game is that understanding these different aspects, they will tell us, one, more about a particular item, but number two, these will be what we use to solve certain puzzles and problems. And the game does a very good job of onboarding you in terms of this. So if you're worried that this is going to be too confusing, or that you have a homework assignment of playing Cultist Simulator, which is a considerably more difficult and punishing game, it's I mean, again, it's a wonderful game, but it's the tone of this is quite different for a reason. And so you have everything that you need at the start. You are not required to play Cultist Simulator to understand this game. But with that in mind, if you have played Cultist Simulator, there are going to be a lot of things that make you smile and make you think. So I'm actually going, if many years from now, if you happen to come across this video and you are someone who played Book of Hours and you then discovered Cultist Simulator through that and gave it a try, I would love to know your impressions of the games in the opposite order, because these do stand on their own. But I do know there's going to be a day when someone plays Book of Hours for the first time and then winds up checking out Cultist Simulator. In fact, that may have already happened, because I know some of the beta testers were not Cultist Simulator players. Anyways, we also have a memory of the storm. There are storms great enough to shake the moon from the sky and one's thoughts from one's skull. So this has the element of sky. Wind, storm, echo, song, the intricacies of mathematics and the principles of flight. Law's touch is lighter than we sometimes think. Matters of balance, harmony, and necessity. Now, this is new. This was not in Cultist Simulator, but note that this very specifically avoids saying principle. And so I do wonder if sky counts as a principle or not. And finally, it's a memory. Something remembered might be something understood. Memories can be used to help with crafting and to upgrade skills. Memories disappear each dawn, except persistent ones. And finally, we have a drowned book, the one possession I kept from the shipwreck. It must be important to me. It's a thing. The gentleman makes things his servants. The petty man is a servant to things. It's readable. There are worse things to put in your eyes than this. Journal, I began before this book, but it'll end when I do, and soaked, in peril of dissolution, intervene quickly, but not hastily. And this is an item. You'll, in this case, you have an inventory in the game now, so. There was something that I was meaning to check on this. We won't worry about it. So, again, if you left-click on locations, you'll get descriptions of them. St. Brendan's Cove. Here the sea ends and the world begins, or the other way around. After storms, the fishermen of Brankrug Village find oddities washed up here. They added something new in terms of the UI, so you right-click to navigate Brankrug. I think this is really helpful because it avoids you accidentally moving items. But, as you can see, there's a bunch of mystery. All that we can really see at this point is... all we can really see at this point is the storm. So there are two locks. There is the tidal flats. Brankrug is a tidal island. At low tide you could walk there, though you probably shouldn't. And Brankrug Village, sanctuary in the storm. I'll need to climb the cliffs in the dark, and the locals are suspicious of outsiders, more than ever so since the Restoration and the new king. So for those of you who are paying close attention, you will notice that the idea of a restoration does not really coincide with the date, but I will leave that mystery to you to solve. Or maybe we'll solve that together as we play the game, but I can't tell you who the new king is. So, what are we going to do? Well, we talked a bit about aspects and sort of the elements of the soul and the different things that you can figure out in terms of a card. And one thing that will be helpful, and again, this is something that if you were to play this game for the first time, you can figure out. I had to figure this out for myself. I had Cultist Simulator sort of in my background, so I had a little bit to go with in terms of how to figure out, in terms of approaches to the game and such. But in the end, we all need to start somewhere. And so in this case, if you need to know what cards can go where, and there are a lot of cards in this game, so just to be clear, like there's going to be a lot to manage. You can't just brute force everything in. You've got, in this case, you can click on an empty spot and it will tell you possibly what it is, or what it will accept, sometimes both. So in this case, slot guidance, one last time, depend on the kindness of strangers. So there are essential elements, or aspects, so only something with all these aspects can go here. In this case, it will only accept assistance. The librarian lives alone, but there is no shame in seeking assistance from others. Assistance can open new rooms or help with your studies. It disappears when used or at dawn. Incidentally, the time isn't passing in this part, so time passes when you get out of the storm, if you get out of the storm. Required. If something has at least one of these aspects, it can go here. So it needs to have sky. And finally, there are forbidden aspects. So if something has this aspect, it can't go here, so we need assistance that's not skeptical and has sky. In theory, if we wanted to go to the tidal flats, we could... Oh, that's remember, sorry. We would need assistance with moon or winter, but... I don't know. If you washed up on a beach after a storm, would you want to go further along the beach? I'd want to go to where the light is. So we don't have this assistance. We've already gone over the different elements. So what's the last thing that we can do? Well, in this case, there's only one other option, and that's this remember verb here. Remember, what do I have left to work with? So salvage, anything that matches these aspects below can go in this slot. So if it's an element of the soul, a memory, or soaked, we can put it in there. Well, let's try our health. Alive, approximately. I'm soaked, I'm freezing, but as far as I can tell, I'm still alive. You still have some health. Don't lose it. You need it if you want to be alive. What else do you have? Well, I do have a memory of the storm. Scattered memories. I can't get my thoughts straight. Perhaps there's something in the book. And so we take our only possession. I remember, perhaps this book can help me put the pieces together. There was a storm. It smashed the ship like an egg, but I seized this book as the sea seized me, and then the sea brought me here to Brandkrug. And Brandkrug is where I wanted to be, but it's hard to remember why. What else did I lose in the storm? Now, this is something that I really like in... I guess I gotta move them in here. The order is going to matter for me in a minute. So, when it comes to Book of Hours, character creation's a bit different. But I really like, this is almost a bit like a personality test. But in this case you have additional elements of the soul. Now it says here fatigued, so wait a little. Fatigued abilities always recover at dawn unless you find faster means of recovery. Well, in this case we won't have dawn, so we're trying to find what was lost in the storm. And I'll just say, I'll use some knowledge ahead of time here, where basically you need to pick one of these, and once you pick one, the other two go away. And so this winds up being how you design your character. And one thing that's nice about Cultist Simulator is that it gives you sort of a random draw in terms of the legacies, and in the case of Book of Hours, you specifically choose the one that you're going on. And so I was thinking a little bit, how can I do something fun for YouTube to make a character? And as it happens, I have a deck of playing cards from Weather Factory's Etsy store. They also have tarot cards, but in this case I'm going to be using the playing cards, specifically the Zingara Fortune-Telling Playing Cards. Copyright Cater and Hero Limited, 1911. Know the secrets beneath the time in the skin of the world. Tell the past, present, and future with this gilded cartomancy deck. Or just play cards. It comes with a neat little instruction manual for telling fortunes from it, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to wind up picking the elements of the soul off of this. So I figured out there's a couple of ways that I can do this, and I decided that so it's a standard 52 card deck. So in this case here, the big challenge that I run into is I need to basically I need to find a way of making it an even chance to draw from 3 and then from 4. So here's kind of the rule that I figured out is I'm going to take the for this first 3, I'm going to take the value of the card. So ace will be 1, and then we'll go all the way up to queen, so 1 through 12. And if I run into a king, I don't think there are jokers in this deck, but if I run into the king, then what I'll do is I'll redraw. And then what I'll do, for those of you who are fans of math, basically I just take modulo 3. For those of you not familiar with modulo, basically, if you remember in school, when you learn division, they'd introduce this idea, if it didn't evenly go in, there would be like this remainder. There's the decimal too, but like if you needed to have the whole number and then you wanted to know what was left over, there's the remainder. Well, modulo basically gives you the remainder. So what I'll do here, so in this case I take my 12, hit it with modulo 3, and then that'll give me a number, 0, 1, 2, and in this case 0 will be shaft, 1 will be core, and fet will be 2. And then when it comes to drawing from the 4, that one's a bit easier. I just take one of the four suits. And in this case here, I have drawn the 7 of hearts with the symbol on it, friends, good or bad. So 7 mod 1, actually I don't need a calculator for this, but it's 1. Sorry, 7 mod 3 is 1. So in this case that would be core. So we could just put it in salvage, but yes, that's me. What else is me? I like taking the time to put the wrong value in here because I think there's something important about this idea that the journal is us. So perhaps this book can help me put the pieces together. What remains of me? Instinct. The human soul has 9 parts. Exuberance, enthusiasm, instinct all rise from that part of the soul we call core. Is my core strong? Recover this, the other 2 will be lost to the sea for now. So, just a reminder, the first position will be... This is the coast where Brandkrug Isle lies. It wasn't easy to come here, but I don't give up easily. Even so, I know there's no way I can cross the isle in these seas. I'll need to find shelter for the night. So here's our core, exuberance, instinct, rhythm. So here we've got Grail, hunger, lust to the drowning waters. The principle of Grail honors both the birth and the feast. It has a heart aspect, to a heart, and occupant, a visitor or a soul element with this aspect can be placed in a guest bed to occupy it for a while. And now we have our 4 elements of the soul. So metal, whist, Faust, and Arab. So likewise, we're going to draw from the deck. So just so I can be upfront about it, the first position, so metal will be spade, heart will be whist. It kind of feels like diamond should be whist, but I'm just doing it in the order that I wrote these down in. Clubs will be Faust, and then finally diamond will be Arab. And in this case, we got the 10 of diamonds, honorable business success. So in this case, we did say the diamonds were Arab. So sorry, I'm just going to take a second to put away these cards. As you can guess, this is going to be mostly focused on character creation, but I think this is a fun way to do it, so... Now, for those of you who are curious about the other elements of the soul, I have read those in other playthroughs, and that's not to drive you to the other videos on the channel. I know that's a thing that's good for YouTube views. But it just so happens that Weather Factory put on Twitter a list of all the elements of the soul, and it's a little more concise than me reading the items on here. So hopefully that will be helpful for you. All right, so we said we were doing Arab based on the draw of the cards. So pride, compassion, hatred, and fear. Maybe we'll say metal, the capacity for meaningful choice. Whist, name, memory, that part which remains. Most librarians know that books have souls. Most librarians hope for books with simple souls of whist and nothing else. And Faust, sight, perception, inspiration, all the glory's gifts. But here, Arab is the shadow in the soul's cellar. Pride, fear, hatred, compassion. Choose a strong Arab and a past where your passions were paramount. The waves will wash away the others for now. I wanted something I didn't have. I don't have very much at all now, do I? I suppose that should make it easier. First things first, I remember there's someone in the village who will give me sanctuary, if I can get there. Mysteries have been added to your journal. You can begin to investigate them when you and your journal are both dry. So you'll notice here that our drowned book now has new aspects. We've got Arab. And here we have an old friend's address. Mrs. Kill is the handy woman, the midwife of Brandkrug village. I knew her long ago in Paris when her surname was not Kill, but Raveline, and her sister was a viscountess. Her home is always open to me, though she's asked me not to bring up the title thing when Mr. Kill's around. I can find shelter for tonight under their roof once I've reached Brankrug Village. This has the Grail aspect, and it is an introduction. So, Grail, hunger, lust of the drowning waters. The principle of the Grail honors both the birth and the feast. And an introduction, even in this remote place, one can meet new friends or make new enemies. So I do want to take a minute here and just talk about how the Drowned Book has changed. So, the one possession I kept from the shipwreck, it must be important to me. So this now has the Sky aspect, and it has Mystery Grail. So we'll talk a little bit about mysteries when, a little bit later on, but greater challenges require stronger skills. And shelter. Brankrug Village must be nearby, but it's hard going, dragging my soaked body across the soaked sand in the teeth of this wind. Which way? Memory, fear. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. Lovecraft. Edge. All conquest occurs at the edge. One who dwells there is blind and cannot be wounded. Another is strong and grows stronger. Edge is the principle of battle and of struggle. Scale. Hard without, hard within. Hard to rouse, harder to subdue. What is left of the crude powers of the deep earth? That's 2 scale, and finally, it is a memory. Alright, we're getting close to the end of our half-drowned health. So, what do we do? Well, one thing we might notice, right, we could try put our core in consider. Oh, that didn't work. Why? Well, again, remember that when you click on an empty space, it will tell you what you can do. Oh! Sorry, I just found a bug. I'm sorry, I really don't want to do bug reporting, but I've never seen this one before, and I think it's one that's likely to go missing. So I'll report that later, but I just wanted to catch the specimen before we go on. I'm so sorry to do this on a video, but your sacrifice is making the game better for when you release it. Okay. So remember, when you want to use a slot, it has to have certain elements. So in this case, skill, readable, lesson, cache, and it can't be a phonograph record or a reel of film. But we can read the descriptions for these, but we'll get to see those later. So I'm going to move them on. So again, you don't have to worry about always you don't have to. You don't have to brute force it. One thing that you could do is you could click and you'll notice that it will highlight the elements that you can put in. Consider I should dry this book out before trying to read it. I mean, I could hit start now, but that's going to take 5 seconds and do nothing. Well, we'll see what happens. Fumbling through the pages from in the rain. I can't glean anything from this book until I've dried it out carefully. So the only other real option that we have here is help. Brankrug Village and shelter lies nearby if I can only muster my remaining strength to find help. Slot, what can I do? So it requires an element of the soul, and it requires heart, knock, or rose. So I think we're, stuck using the core in here. Again, we can use the same trick. You'll also notice if you click on a card and put, it'll highlight the slots that you can put it in. So something in the wind. My instinct tells me that this might be it might be this way, and without a map, instinct is as good as a compass as any. The cliffs grow dark against the ragged stars, and then at last I see the light of a hurricane lamp bobbing in the dark. As it approaches, a face glimmers above the lamp. A fisherman's assistance. A fisherman from Brankrug Village. He can guide me up the cliff path if he trusts me. So he's got moon aspect, secrets are soft, night is softer still, the sea speaks, it is not always wise to listen, the nocturnal, the forgotten. He has sky aspect, we've talked about that. So it's a very sky way that we created, I guess it would have to be moth and sky for our card-driven answer. Wind, storm, echo, song, the intricacies of mathematics, principles of flight laws touches lighter than we sometimes think. Sorry, I read that before. Skeptical, trust can be bought or earned. Assistance, and it is reluctant, someone who will provide help, but only essential help. So recall that these are a number of aspects that we need to get to Brandkrug Village. Unfortunately, because he is skeptical, he won't help us. But notice, if you click, he goes into the talk verb. Come no closer. What's thy business? A name? Is there someone who might vouch for me with the villagers? Be someone that'll speak free? Of course, since 1930 and the Restoration, the locals have grown ever more suspicious of foreigners, but there is someone in Brandkrug I know. I'll take ye by the cliffs then. This gentleman is no longer skeptical. So notice the skeptical has been removed. Alright, Brandkrug Village, Sanctuary in the Storm. I'll need help to climb the cliffs in the dark, and the locals are suspicious of outsiders more than ever so since the Restoration and the new king. Freezing. It's not even cold anymore. I could just lie down right here. I could sleep right here. You really need to find shelter. Winter, element of the soul, malady, and soaked. Here is Brandkrug. So, there is the smithy. There's the sweet bones. There's the post office. There is the rectory. But we are about to die. So Mr. and Mrs. Kill, locked. Mrs. Kill, the midwife, is tall and gloomy. Mr. Kill, the undertaker, is slight and wry. In these troubled times, both are wary of strangers. You need a suitably marked introduction. Check the slot. Mrs. Kill struggles with the door. The wind almost snatches it from her hands. The storm wind plucks at you both. Shelter? Shelter. Element of the soul and soaked. Mrs. Kill opens the door with caution, but flings it wide, letting the wind bang it when she sees me. Take shelter with the Kills. Mr. K constructed the bed himself. I rather fear with the same tools he uses to shape coffins. It is not a comfortable bed, but it's dry, clean, and warm. Brandkrug Village. This quiet Cornish fishing village has lain long in the Isle's shadow. It might be as old as Hush House itself, and like Hush House, Brandkrug Village has provided sanctuary over the years for its share of misfits and exiles. Mrs. K and I sit up late talking over old times in the Latin Quarter when the world and we were very different. Mr. K listens as he cleans his pipe. Wine and roses, he observes. Suppose the wine is all spilt now, but the roses will come up again, won't them? So we got a memory for that, hindsight. Some things we can really only understand when they're gone, which has scale and winter aspects. And our health is restored to its proper level. Health, the dwelling place of the soul, the ninth of the 9 parts of the soul, the only one that can be touched. And health has the heart aspect, nectar, the green wealth in the world's veins, the pulse of the seasons. Long ago, some called this principle blood. Scale, hard without, hard within, hard to rouse, harder to subdue, element of the soul, and occupant. So we're close to the end of our time together. This was really just about establishing the sort of the playthrough. So there's a lot of things to do in Brandkrug Village, and then there's also we're no longer, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We're no longer trying to just outright survive. In this case, we were heading to Brandkrug to become the librarian anyway, and this is the one thing that we aren't doing, right? The library's over here, and we have some mist-cloaked bridges to, well, at least one mist-cloaked bridge to pass, and then some other challenges before we can get into the library, let alone start reading the books. But to do that, we're going to have to pass some obstacles. The mist-cloaked bridge, every so often someone builds a bridge to the Isle. Each bridge lasts 100 years, or 200, and then the sea disposes of it. This was built in the 1890s, and that makes it the newest bridge, but that doesn't mean it's new. So this would require repairs. Hush House has been empty for 7 years. Those 7 years have rendered the bridge perilous. So with assistance with Forge, Sky, or Lantern, we would be able to open up the bridge. How we do that is going to be a topic for another episode. Thank you everybody for watching. This is going to be this is going to take the place of Cultist Simulator for a little while, so this will be my regular update. I hope you stick around for it. I know it's not Cultist Simulator, but I really think this is a very special game, and I think it's one it's one that I hope you enjoy as much as I do. But the plan for this is going to be to upload new episodes Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Tuesday will be a day off. Obviously, there's going to be the Twitch save that's running along, but we're gonna stick with this one for now. So we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.